Okay, let's start with the definition. That definition's a bit dense. It contains a number of different parts, and every part of that definition is important, so I'll talk about it. First of all, a symbol is a concrete object in literature. If it's a concrete object in literature, what is it not? It's not an abstract idea. Abstract ideas cannot be symbols. So Robbie, when you were advancing your idea that happiness is a symbol, happiness is an abstract idea, cannot be a symbol. What else can it not be? That's an abstract concept. Abstract concepts, ideas. It cannot be that. If it's a concrete object in literature, what can it not be? What would be in literature that you would not consider a concrete object? That's also an abstract idea. Also an abstract idea. People. Characters cannot be symbols. And you might say, well, Mr. Clarkson, I know characters can symbolize or represent something. You talked to us about Finney in childhood. Absolutely. But then we're talking about allegory, and that's a different issue. Right now we're talking about symbolism. And when we talk about symbolism, we're talking about concrete objects, non-human things in literature. It represents a variety of related ideas. We already hit on that part of the definition. So not simply one idea, but several. And our flame metaphor generated quite a lot of different ideas. And they're usually related. So the idea of power might be related to the idea of life, might be related to the idea of energy. And sometimes symbols can be contradictory, as you saw with fire, representing both safety and destruction. And that's one of the reasons that fire is such a potent symbol for authors, not just Shakespeare and Bradbury, but many others will use it. What it represents is a series of abstract concepts. So concrete represents abstract. One represents many. Authors use symbols. Yeah, they use symbols to represent something. I want fire to stand in for the concept of life. I want fire to stand in for the concept of destruction. I want the bald eagle to stand in for the concept of freedom. Okay, they do that. But then they tell stories about the fire, and they tell stories about the bald eagle. And those stories don't just represent the concept, but comment on it. Jake, what happens to your bald eagle?
It flies high
And? Come on, tell a story. I want you to make a story. Okay, it's flying high and free, and what's happening to it?
all of a sudden,
Hold on. Shh. Let Jake tell a story.
it
Spots its prey. Excellent. And?
it swoops down,
And?
captures
It captures the prey, and what does it do with the prey?
brings it back to its nest,
Brings it back to its nest, and?
gives it to its
Gives it to its chicks. And those chicks, do they grow up and become bald eagles themselves? And do they become powerful? Excellent. Does Jake, as a person, feel that freedom and individuality will be successful? Does he think that these are valuable political concepts? Does he think that that we as a people should see freedom and individuality as good and then value them in our lives? Yes. If he felt the opposite way, how would his story have gone? Josiah. Right. Or the eagle would have found, yes, that was a little gruesome. Or the eagle would have descended, and see this, the eagle would have descended upon a prey that suddenly multiplied in number, and its individualism, its lone nature, its solitary nature as an eagle would have been its undoing. Because the group would have mounted against it, and it would have either lost its prey or lost its life. Do you see how the difference in story is a difference in comment? I'm saying different things about individualism depending upon the story. So I'm not just representing freedom, I'm commenting on it by telling a story about it. Symbols are complex. Symbols are one of the most complex literary concepts that you will encounter. But understand the definition, And now let's understand method. At this point, I will give you a little bit of a worksheet or some helpful assistance in analyzing symbol. It contains some of the concepts that you've seen on the board. What, to have a handout? Nah, well, you know, it happens every once in a while. I'm sorry? Statistical. Yes. Okay. The method that I'm giving you starts with the definition. Next, you must understand how to gather data about the symbol. And data gathering is always just questioning. Think about this as science. You gather data and then you draw conclusions. We will follow the same sort of approach. So there's all sorts of science going on in this room today. These 4 questions should cover it. You ask yourself these 4 questions about any sort of symbol, and you should be able to generate conclusions about what that symbol represents and, furthermore, what the author is saying about it. And the bald eagle is relatively easy. The woods, or the tree, in a separate piece will be a little bit more complicated. So if you turn on the back of this sheet that I've given you, you'll see some space in which you can write down answers to these questions. And when possible, I'd love you to give me page references for anything that you've got, and that'll be especially helpful with the last question, how does the author describe it? We don't have to go in order. What I'd like to do is hear from you answers to any of the questions regarding the trees/woods in a separate piece. Jake, start us off.
It was day when Gene's coming back. He says he wants to visit 2 fearful places.
So this would be something about the author's description, correct?
Yeah.
So Gene calls it fearful. And that's probably, it's early in chapter 1, so it's probably somewhere in 10 to 14 page reference, something like that. What else? Tori? Yeah, another question. Go ahead. Or you have a page reference. What do you have? Page 14. Thank you. Page 14. It's called fearful. And that's what I'm looking for with this answer. I want adjectives and other sorts of descriptive language which tell me not only what the thing is, but how the author feels about it. Fearful.
And also, like, I don't know, freedom.
You're rushing. You're rushing to the abstract meaning. We can't rush there yet. We just need evidence about what's going on in the book. Just tell me things that happen with it, how it's described. I know you want to rush there, Daniel, but we need to have the evidence first. It's tall. What does it say exactly, Sarah? There we go. Now you're starting to get a picture. And I don't mean a picture as in an image in your mind. I mean a picture as in a pattern. Fearful, a soaring black trunk. Anybody have any other images, especially around that page, that give you an indication of this same pattern? Tori? Yeah. Yeah, perfect. 14 again. However, also on page 14, we see it in the present day, and the description's a little bit different. Shelby, is that the description you're looking at?
I think so. He says, like, what it resembles, like,
Yeah.
the giants of your childhood.
Giants of your childhood, but keep going with that.
Who you encounter years later and find that they are not merely smaller in relation to your growth,
Mhm.
but that they are absolutely smaller, shrunken by age.
No, that's good enough. There, definitely other passages exist on that page that would be helpful, but that's a good representation. Shrunken by age. I believe enfeebled and dry is also stated there. This is exactly what I'm looking for, but this is only 2 pages in the book. Other descriptions of the woods exist within a separate piece at various points. He talks about the great northern woods at several points in the novel, at which he gives a number of quotations that could be helpful, like these. If any of you can throw your hands around the book and find page references, that would be great. Yeah, Shelby.
On page 30, he's kind of
30.
talking about the northern woods. He's saying that it was the beginning of the Great Northern Forest.
Mm-hmm. I will read, beyond the gym and the fields began the woods, the Devon Schools woods, which in my imagination were the beginning of the great northern forests. I thought that, from the Devon woods, trees reached an unbroken, widening corridor so far to the north that no one had ever seen the other end. Somewhere up in the far, unorganized tips of Canada, we seemed to be playing on the tame fringe of that last and greatest wilderness. I never found out whether this is so, and perhaps it is. Thank you, Shelby. Snowball fight. There's a description around the snowball fight. See if you can find it. Where did the snowball fight happen? What chapter? 11. Hmm? Yes, Jasmine.
What's the thing after the last name?
Unending. I don't know either. I try not to ask, though. We have other questions. Now, when I say what are the qualities of the symbol, this is how the author describes it. These are necessary qualities of the symbol. So remember that John Knowles chose a tree. He could have chosen a rock. He could have chosen a house. He could have chosen just about anything. Bradbury chose fire. So you've got to think, what are the qualities of trees and woods and so on? Jake? They grow. Excellent. This is a living thing. Sarah? They're tall. Sturdy. Anything else? Yeah.
They can have an end, like they can be cut down.
Oh, good, good. Can end. Trees do die. Yes, Jasmine. Oh, good. They can shelter. Okay. Yes, Sarah. They can be dangerous. Now, this is kind of going a step forward. I don't want to go too fast, but I will ask this question. Sarah, which of those can provide shelter or can be dangerous does Knowles emphasize more? That's right. So now we're getting a little bit of his comment, right? He's decided that, hey, they can do both of these, but I'm going here. Connor. Okay. Can shelter be dangerous? Can provide entertainment. Yes, I would put, and that's kind of connected to the sturdy idea, sturdy and powerful. Now I know that some of you might think, okay, but trees can be small and wispy, and basically trees can be small enough that you can pull them right out of the ground. I know. However, when we think of trees, we don't think of that. When we think of trees, we think of those things that we see out there that you couldn't pull up. Oh, redwoods? Oh, geez, yeah, that's like a tree on steroids. Right. You folks are doing an excellent job, but we have more evidence to gather. Now, this is from the novel. What does it do, or what happens with it? What plot events? And then here, we've got to think, how do the characters react to it or interact with it?
The innocent when Jean Jocelyn is involved.
Okay, so it maims Finney, right? This is the site of his crippling.
That's
Page 31 and 32. That's where that happens? Yes. Okay, leper fears it. Does Gene fear it?
In a sense, yeah.
What's it used for? At Devon's school. Who? Oh. The seniors. Ah, but remember, they're not supposed to. Seniors use it for training. They are jumping from it, but they're not supposed to. So, seniors use it for training, for war. Yes. Bingo. Remember, we're not just talking about that tree, we're talking about the woods. So, oh, okay. Oh, leper enters. Why? No, I mean in the literal sense. What? To find what? Why? Well, it was kind of important. I mean, but he established the symbol, right? Because he threw the Devon River in the middle of the woods there and said, I'm going to throw leper at the top of this hill trying to find his way through. Sarah? Oh, good. Gene almost falls out of it, right? Right. Because Gene's about to fall, but then who saves him? Finney. Yeah, well, let's see. What does it do? It's the setting of the snowball fight. So summer session ends. Leper leaves his dorm of the summer session. Where does he go? In an older building next to the woods. Do we have anything else? Snowball fight, well, the pivotal plot events of the snowball fight, leper skiing trip. Okay. But then it maims him. So first it entertains, and then it causes harm. Right, it's all fun and games until your best friend throws you out of the tree. Does anybody know its relationship to the Devon campus, physically? No, I mean the woods. I'm sorry.
It's the last part of it.
It's the border, right?
Yeah.
It borders the Devon campus. Got a lot of information. That was excellent. And if you were writing an intact or a complete symbol analysis of the fire in Fahrenheit 451, you would approach it in the same way. Any symbol should provide enough evidence strung throughout. Metaphors are the ones that are simple. The metaphors are simple expressions, useful for a moment, and then they go away. And they're quite often not extended over long periods of time. Symbols are extended over long periods of time, so you have all this evidence. But now that we have this, ouch. We ask two questions. What are the two questions that we're asking? What are our conclusion questions? What does it represent? Good. And what is the comment? Thank you, Shelby. Remember what we said with the bald eagle. Not just what does the bald eagle represent, but what does Jake's story tell us about how Jake feels about those ideas? So let's ask the first question. What does the tree/woods represent? War. Evidence. Okay, its connection to leper, first of all, is evidence that it represents war, because leper is the first to enter the war, and he moves, at the end of the summer session, he moves next to the woods, and he enters the woods. So we understand that they represent war here. Do you have other evidence that they represent war? The snowball fight. Excellent. This is the site of a conflict game, the snowball fight. Does anybody remember the site of Blitzball, a non-conflict game? Aiming toward what? Fields aiming toward? Which would be represented by what setting aspect? Devon River. Very good. So we've got the setting of the snowball fight and leper's connection help us understand that it represents war. But we've said symbols represent a series of related concepts. So what else could it represent besides just war? Friendship. I think it's too negative for that. I think we're going to look at a number of negative characteristics or possibly negative characteristics. I think friendship is too positive. Jake. Okay, so they represent the war and to a certain extent any competition or struggle. Shelby, what'd you have?
Death.
Oh, interesting. How do you get death?
Well, because, like, Finney breaks his leg, which then causes even more problems because he has to be careful and then he falls,
Good.
and then that causes him to die during sleep.
So it is the site of his death, the site of his physical crippling, which is essentially his death. Connor. Pain, okay. It borders the Devon school. Those boys cannot leave Devon except by going through the woods. Jean envisions it as unending, as saying that it probably can't ever be crossed. What might this mean it represents? Because the war ends, right? The war ends at some point. Human conflict, sure. It could mean struggle or conflict in general. But I was thinking more like it represents just the future. The future is, of course, dark, right? The future is unknown. At several points, when describing the woods, he talks about, where was I? He talks about how he does not know if it can ever end. Later, when he's talking about the snowball fight, he says that he imagined a grove at the end of the woods, and now he knows that no such grove exists, that there's no just ending of the woods. The future is always there. That challenge always looms in front of us.
And also, like, fearful could be, like, one thing because you're kind of fearing, like, what would happen.
Okay, now, Daniel, you're getting us onto the comment, which is good. So let's think what the author is trying to tell us about it. What's the author saying about the future, about war? What's he saying about these things? Everybody? Okay.
Those who cannot grow up.
War will not kill everybody. Some people will make it, some people won't. Evidence? Gene makes it through.
But
Jasmine?
I was gonna say, like, you said Flipper died like mentally in it.
Right. So some people will die physically, some people will die mentally, all in their reaction to the war. But they won't necessarily die. Gene's able to jump from the tree successfully, right? The tree, even if you want to give it human characteristics and personify it, the tree tries to kill Gene, but it's unsuccessful.
He fears it, but that's what it is. He has respect for the war.
Can you avoid the war?
No.
Evidence.
Leper.
True, but other evidence that shows that it's unavoidable.
Everybody was
No, the trees. I want evidence about the trees.
Oh, when Leper said he couldn't when he was going down the hill.
He can't get to the Devon without going through the woods, so that's possible evidence. I'm also thinking that you have to go through the woods in order to leave Devon School. It is the border. It's the border line, so it's unavoidable. Is the future frightening? Yes? Evidence.
Could you kind of use his, oh, sorry,
That's okay.
I understand, but
No,
could
that's
you
all
kind of use the death as like a scary future because they didn't know?
Sure, but that's your reaction to it rather than the reaction in the novel. I want fear reactions in the novel. Gene and Leper are both scared, and look at the description, folks. This is often where you'll see author comment. A soaring black trunk, fearful, tremendous, irate, steely black. All of that description tells you the future is something to be feared, but it's unavoidable. John Knowles is using the trees and the woods to represent what looms in front of these boys. And what looms in front of the boys is the future is challenge. Every teenager, every child looking to the adult world looks to a future filled with challenges, competition, and struggle. I think that's part of the natural order of things. Wait a minute, natural order of things. What did he pick as his symbol? Something natural, thank you. Something part of the landscape. It's not artificial, it's not created by human beings. It's part of nature. Okay, so this is natural and this is unavoidable. It's very fearful. It will destroy some people who are not ready for it. Others will not be destroyed by it. Daniel?
Well, like, wasn't Finney not afraid to jump off though, so would he not be afraid?
Who would not be afraid of the future? A child, somebody who's not really aware of what the future holds. A healthy fear of the future is just that, healthy.
I feel like you say the word fear, but fear is also respect and
Fear is also respect and understanding. Very good. Okay, more on allegory tomorrow.
what's a vicious word?
Allegory.